In this training tip, I want to share with you how to get rid of IT band pain. So I want to debunk this myth first about IT band stretching, right? Many of us have been told for a long, long time, if you have your band, this IT band, right, which runs down the side of the leg, is tight, we should stretch and stretch and stretch this IT band, right? Well, the problem with it is this band actually becomes tight in response to imbalances in the muscles, specifically talking about our quads and our hamstrings and glutes. Okay, so that's really what we want to address here. So a couple things that I typically find when someone has really tight IT band is that their quads are really, really, really tight. And a lot of times it's more this like lateral quad, this outer quad. So something I recommend doing is getting your foam roller and rolling out the quad. Like you can, definitely try the middle and the inner line of the quad as well, but a lot of times it's going to be this outer quad or even all the way up into what's called our TFL can get really tight. So making sure you're rolling way up into this top part of the top part of the quad, really. And then also I want you to check in to see, are my hamstrings and the lower part of my glute working? What can tend to really happen, especially if you've noticed you also have maybe a little bit of low back pain sometimes, or you feel really tight up here in what's actually called our glute med. So if you do any like side lying exercises and you notice you kind of dump into your back, this is why I'm always telling you with those to really lengthen and reach through that, because we don't want to dump into our low back. So if this area is really, really tight, it can also be causing pulling on that IT band. So we could do a little more release here, but we can't just release, right? You all know that you can't just release things in order to create balance. So we have to then strengthen. So what areas of our body need to be strengthened? Many times with the IT band, it's a balance of quads and also hamstrings back here and kind of the underside of our glutes. So really paying attention, do you tuck your butt underneath you and is this really, really tight, which means it's probably not activating correctly, right? So we want to think about activating the hamstrings. So I want to show one I like with the ball. It's very gentle, like everybody can do it. You can do it standing, where you just want to think about lifting up tall through the core and just doing some little hamstring squeezes with that ball. So we're kind of waking up that hamstring. You can do, 10 to 20 here, and you can do like 10 to 20 little presses back. Now watch when you push back though that we don't dump. Right? We want to stabilize the pelvis, which means many times we have to really make our range of motion really much smaller, okay? And then doing some little squeezes. And I would do it on both legs, even if you tend to only have ITB pain on one side. Something else that's really common is runners tend to have tight IT bands in general, whether it's painful or not. So really tuning in that as a runner, you're using your hamstrings. Hamstrings tend to get shortened, right? But just because they're shortened doesn't necessarily mean they're strong. So it's looking at the balance of the lengthening our quads, strengthening our quads, lengthening our hamstrings and strengthening our hamstrings. So something that I recommend to runners, or even if you're a walker as well, is stopping and doing some squats. Number one, to warm you up before you go out for a run or a walk. In between your runs and walks, if you notice you start to pull in your hip flexors or your hips, or you just start to feel that pull in the IT band, to stop and do some squat pulses in the different positions, even doing some lunges and things like that, to really make sure that you're using your hamstrings. Hamstrings, I find, is like a really, really, really big key in making sure that we have that support of the back of the legs, and then that will then tell that IT band, oh, you don't have to work quite so hard.